Welcome to Native Yoga Toddcast. So happy you are here. My goal with this channel is to bring inspirational speakers to the mic in the field of yoga, massage, bodywork, and beyond. Follow us at Native Yoga and check us out at nativeyogacenter.com. All right, let's begin. Welcome to Native Yoga Toddcast. My name is Todd McLaughlin. Today, I'm bringing back Hilary Kallenberger. Go listen to her episode number 204, 20 episodes ago. This is number 224. So Hilary had a hip replacement surgery. She's a yoga teacher, and we planned this. I had met Hilary prior to her surgery, and we both thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a podcast before the hip replacement and then to do a follow-up session so that you can hear what it entails. What is it like? And then obviously you might not be thinking anything about hip replacement, but there's a good chance there's some time or some place in your life where you might be recovering from an injury, an illness, something challenging in your life. So I think what Hilary and I are attempting to highlight here is the journey to healing, the journey through healing, the healing journey. That's what I think this is what we're trying to do. This is our goal. This is my intention to help make our journeys together productive, healing, kind, compassionate, empathetic for one another. And maybe there's somebody in our life that is going through a healing process, and maybe we could help them a little bit. Wait till you hear how much the help that people gave Hilary lights her up and how it's changed her. And we can help others, and there's going to be a time where we're going to need to ask for help too. And so thank you so much, Hilary, for joining me, and thank you, listener, for supporting the show. Let's go ahead and get started. It is a great pleasure to be here with Hilary Kallenberger again. Hilary, thank you for joining me for another episode. I had a chance to interview you on episode number 204. That was back in January. And you and I had actually formulated a plan at that time because we had a conversation prior to you having hip replacement surgery. And now it's May, and what is today's date? May 20th. So you've already undergone hip replacement surgery. So I guess the purpose, my goal, and I think we both have the same goal, is to talk about the reality of, I am a yogi, but it is okay to ask for help. I am a yogi, and it is okay to maybe need to use the medical association for assistance. I am a yogi or a yogini who, wants to do everything natural, but maybe needs to do things unnatural. Or is the unnatural approach unnatural? Is that the natural approach? Am I looking at it the wrong way? All these questions I want to ask you. But before, I know it's a little bit of a long intro. How are you feeling today? How are you doing?
I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling great.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot has happened since we talked last, for sure.
A lot has happened. Well, I'd like to hear all about it. How was the surgery and how's your recovery been?
So the surgery went well. Everything went fairly, as expected, so to speak, as far as the outcome. I'm doing really well right now. It was definitely a little more challenging in surprising ways than I had kind of expected. The surgery itself was, kind of in and out. Everything went as planned. I had the unfortunate incident of having a failed nerve block. So when I woke up from surgery, that 2 or 3 days of kind of false comfort that people get because they're numb from the waist down, I didn't get to experience that, which made things very challenging. And also it was quite a gift because I had gone into surgery with the intent that I was not going to take any pharmaceutical drugs. So, and that was that kind of a commitment that I had made to myself for a few different reasons. I did have them in case I got into, obviously a dangerous type situation. You don't want your pain to get out of control. But I felt fairly confident in my ability to navigate this with the tools that I have, with the power of my breath, with being present. And so it was really something important to me, that, and everyone's different, but for me personally, I didn't want to take any medication.
Understood.
So to my surprise, I woke up and was in like a 10 out of 10 pain immediately after surgery. So I didn't get that kind of, leeway you get while that's wearing off. I didn't know that at the time. And so initially when I woke up, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe my pain tolerance is not as high as I thought it was. And I started having a lot of kind of self-doubt, and thinking, I don't know if I can do this if the pain gets much worse, because, the idea is that the nerve block wears off and you should have your pain meds ready on day 2 or 3 when that kicks in. And I thought, if it gets worse than this, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it. By day 2 or 3, when the pain wasn't getting worse, then I kind of had an aha moment, and I was like, I don't think the nerve block worked, which I've got a history of some similar things happening. So it wasn't really a surprise, but that made the first 72 hours very sticky, when it came to the pain that I was in.
Ooh.
I am very happy to say that I made it through the entire recovery without taking any medication.
Congratulations.
And there was a gift that came with that, which was really being present with my pain and being present in my body. And that was sort of one of those like unexpected gifts that you don't realize is a gift until you kind of get through it. Because I was sitting there going, I don't know if I can do this. And then on day 3, it was kind of this like, I'm doing this. It's happening. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And the relationship with my body through this process, through this surgery, and the recovery has been, life-changing for me. It's rewired a lot of the patterns in my brain. It's rewired the relationship that I have with my body. I had a lot of awareness that came with how brutal I had been to my body for so many years. And this kind of, so they actually let me keep my femur head. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell anyone that, but we just did. So I talked them into it, and I said, can I please keep the bone that you removed? Because I really wanted to just keep that with me. And when I, got through the first few days and was able to really look at it and see it, it was like, oh my gosh, you could literally see the damage.
Wow.
And it's in really bad shape. And it made me very aware of how much pain I had been carrying for so long, and just how much I had just been trying to push through it, power through it. And it really changed how I felt about my body, instead of trying to kind of like, train my body and push my body into submission, to really start opening up to allow it to speak to me through comfort to discomfort and all the things that come with it.
Wow. I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Very cool. Amazing. Yeah. Well, this might be a personal question, but was part of your reason for wanting to not utilize the assistance of pain medication is because of a past of maybe overusing some substance?
There was a combination of factors. So one was, yes, I have a history of, addictive behaviors in all kinds of realms. And so I definitely didn't want to go down that path of, getting into something that I couldn't get myself out of. I didn't want to experience the physical side effects that often come with taking medication. I didn't like the idea of putting potential toxins in my body that my body was going to have to work even harder to clear itself of and detox from, because I was already detoxing from the anesthesia and, some of the things that had already happened, the trauma of being cut open and moved around and all of that. So to me, it felt like one more block to healing. And then the other thing was that I really wanted to be able to do it. I really wanted to, I kind of knew subconsciously that this was an opportunity to heal the relationship with my body. I just didn't realize how that was going to happen. And so I think that was part of it as well. And I will not lie, there were a couple times when I looked over at that orange prescription bottle and I thought, should I? Because I was very uncomfortable. It was really rough. And then I just kept going, nope, you don't want to be anxious. You don't want to be constipated. You don't want to be like, do you want to feel all those things plus the discomfort? And I was like, no, I can do it. I can do it. So,
nice.
So yeah, so there was a lot of reasons for that, but it was something that I had committed to before. And that was the other thing, is I had made a commitment to myself. And part of that relationship with myself was honoring the commitments that I make to me.
Wow. Very cool. Congratulations. How has your, I don't want to assume that everybody listening to you and I now have listened to episode 204, but just to give a real quick, brief reanalysis for the listener, for you listener, is Hilary is a yoga teacher and she lives on the west coast of Florida, and she's been practicing dance for a really long time at a high level in New York, and then got into yoga and body work. And you're also a licensed counselor, I believe. Do I have that
Previous
right?
Licensed counselor.
Previous licensed counselor, but still working with people and clientele to improvement, betterment, coaching, working with yoga. So you've had a long history of body movement awareness, and then had this incredible hip pain and decided to go ahead and have the surgery. So that's a real quick synopsis. You probably could have done it better than me, Hilary, but I figured at least so those listening will have some idea who I'm talking to. But I guess I should let you tell your story. Can you fill in a few gaps there that I missed? And I know it's like, how many years have you lived? How do you fill in all those years in time and all the gaps? But what are a few key gaps that I missed that you think are important for questions that are coming about what your relationship to self now looks like and how you see that evolution?
Well, so I'll kind of touch on a few things you said. So I was a dancer up until my early 20s, and then sprinkled a little bit beyond that. So I was very, very hard on my body. I was in a very performance oriented arena. Also, my home life was a little performance oriented as well. So I was very hard on myself. I was a perfectionist, and developed, a history of things like addiction, eating disorders, really had a challenging relationship with my body and never felt I was good enough. I sought wanting to help others, and so I think I was subconsciously trying to heal myself through my work as a counselor. I then became a fitness instructor, a yoga instructor, a personal trainer, started doing body work, and really started working with others in that capacity, which in turn helped me, kind of navigate things for myself. But I was always kind of up in my head. I knew the things to do, but I never felt it in my physical body. I knew that my thinking was off. And so I was always trying to convince myself to change my mind, but I was never really feeling that sense of love for myself, of comfort in my body. I was talking to a friend just before we got on today, and one of the big shifts that has happened for me is, and I think a lot of people will maybe relate to this, especially if you've, had any kind of body dysmorphia or disordered eating type stuff, is that, I wake up in the morning now and I don't assess my body and how it looks based on my worth for the day. And that is huge when you've been living your whole life that way. Yeah. As far as how you look, your size, are people going to accept me? Did I eat too much last night? Oh my gosh, I'm fat. All these weird, crazy messages that we imprint in our brain are gone. And the experience that I had by going through this, induced chosen trauma, right? And going through the pain and the literally having to learn how to walk again, which was very humbling because I did have a lot of pain. I think I might have had more pain than some people I've talked to have experienced. And for me, I didn't walk out of there. It took me days to really be able to bear weight on my leg. It took me even more days to walk unassisted, where I could take a full step. And it was very humbling. And it made me realize how much I'd taken my body for granted, and being able to dance across the stage and being able to, do all these advanced quote moves in yoga my flexibility and my strength and all these things that I'd always worked for, but I'd also taken for granted that that was part of who I was, right? So that was just
Wow.
ingrained in my identity. And I had to really shed those layers of like, well, who am I if I'm never able to move that way again? Like, does that really change who I am and my worth? Or, who am I at a deeper level? And those weeks after surgery really gave me an opportunity to sit with that, to examine that, to be with my pain, to look at my body in a way that, I'm actually feeling what I say to others, which is like, honoring your body as a vessel that gets you around through this life and all the things that it does do for us. And I got back on my yoga mat on day 13. And my physical body was not ready for that, but I needed that. I needed to remember what my yoga practice was about. And it wasn't about being able to do a complicated pose, right? But it was really about being in community and breathing and honoring where I was. And I wanted to set an example for my students, and I wanted to show up. So I showed up every day. As soon as
Wow.
I was able to drive, I showed up on my mat and I did what I could do. And I walked in there with a cane, and there was a lot of things that I couldn't do, but one day at a time, things got easier, things got better. I invested in the practice, and I would say that now my practice is better than it's been in 2 years, because I've rebuilt the strength in the way that my body needed, instead of trying to push through pain and work around it all the time.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing, Hilary. Holy cow. So
Yeah, really
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Yeah.
I mean,
And
I love hearing all this because I'm just so curious, and I think what's most impressive to me is it seems or it sounds to me like you going through the pain really had a profound effect on you. Like it's maybe you're right. Like it actually rewired a few wirings that need to be rewired.
it was very humbling. It's
Yeah.
very humbling um to need that kind of assistance, to not be able to really do much for yourself initially, and to really drop into a sense of gratitude for what we can do, instead of having the focus be on what is not good enough, right? And so it shifts you from that lack state of like, oh, I couldn't balance today on my left leg, I'm a terrible person, which hopefully
Yeah.
nobody thinks that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
to a place like, oh my gosh, like I would celebrate these little joys. Like I remember the first time I was able to like cross my leg over into an eagle shape. And I looked at my friend who was instructing the class, and we kind of like saw each other like, I'm doing it. And it was this moment
Yeah.
of just like, it's happening because I just keep trying, I just keep putting forth the effort and showing up. And I think that says a lot about what we know, of the power of yoga and showing up for yourself every day. And that was really, I've always showed up for yoga, but showing up for myself in a different way, when I didn't look the way that, maybe a yoga teacher should look, or I wasn't doing things in the way that I was accustomed to doing them. And it was just a very humbling experience of, even, I couldn't get down and up off the floor sometimes. I mean, there was just some real challenges, and the mobility and flexibility it's a process. So talk about being with the process. We want to heal as fast as possible, and we're like, when can I do this again? We're looking for like, when am I going to be able to stand on this leg, or when can I get my leg into a figure four? And it's like it's a day-to-day thing. And some days I'm like, oh wow, look, I've got some really nice mobility today. And some days my hip still gets a little stiff and tight, and that being okay, because it just is where it is right now. So the process really allowed me to practice being more present and develop appreciation for what I can do,
Cool.
instead of worrying so much about what's not working the way that I want it to, which is, part of life, right?
Isn't it amazing? Do you think you could have come to this realization without having to have to go through all of this?
Um, I would like to think that eventually, maybe, because these are things that I've been working towards. It's like I want to be more present. I want to live in gratitude. I want all these things. And, I'm always aiming towards that. But I think this experience literally swept me off my feet and was like, you asked for it. Here you go.
Wow.
Want these things. Let me give you a direct path to gratitude and a direct path to humility and a direct path to learning how to be graceful through your suffering and have a mindset that is not of a victim or is not of a woe is me, why did this happen to me, but really as a gift. Like, this is giving me all of these tools, all of this insight that I would have never had otherwise. And one of the biggest gifts from a yoga teacher perspective is, we know the things, we know how to teach modifications and, we learn all those things, but there's really something to be said about experiencing something firsthand in your own body. And, the first bit of time when I could not reach down to touch my toes, it was kind of like, oh, that's what it feels like to not be able to reach your toes. Like, it's not will. It's not that I'm not flexible. It's like my body is not moving that way today for whatever reason. And so because I had to get really creative in my practice, because I was like, oh, well, I can't do that. What could I do that would kind of simulate that or get the same thing out of it, but create a different shape that's safe for my body? It really helped me as a yoga instructor think outside the box of what could I offer my students who are struggling with limitations.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's so cool. I was like, I'm learning so much right now.
Yeah. And now someone comes in, and it's not just necessarily hip replacement, but somebody comes into your class and says, I have a really bad shoulder. I have a really bad neck. I have this thing going on. And I feel like you probably have more understanding of pain. I mean, you were in pain, but it sounds like the pain that you went through post-surgery was a little more acute, would you say? Like the pain that you had in your hip kind of building up to the hip replacement? I mean,
I would say the pain I had in my hip building up was definitely a chronic pain that was very uncomfortable. I would say that the pain post-surgery was an entirely different kind of pain. And it was more like you take a step and you're like, oh my gosh, like it was such a deep pain versus kind of a wear and tear pain. And then what's fascinating is as the healing process, took place, I'm now at the point that I have less pain than I've had in probably 2 years, if I'm being honest. Like, and I forget. And that's the interesting part about how we wire ourselves, because, it used to be that I'd get up off the floor or if I'd been down to pick something up, I'd lean to my left and bypass my hip. It just became a habit. And now last night I went down to unplug a light and I leaned to my left. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to do that anymore. I can literally fold forward without having to compensate. And so, even just like, wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did that for so long. And, so many people say their only regret about, having a hip replacement is they wish they would have done it sooner. Amen. I mean, if I would have really listened sooner and explored that before it became a dire need, my recovery might have been a little easier too, because I went into it with a lot of damage. So, it wasn't really elective in that sense, and that I had a lot of things that were flared up. Well, you worked on me, flared up and tight and constricted that had probably been that way for many years. So part of my recovery was actually getting muscles to come back online that weren't just dormant because they had been sliced from surgery, but they had been dormant for years. So it really took a lot to kind of, get things moving again in the way I needed them to.
What is the journey like in relation to building up to either the distance or the amount of time spent walking? Where are you at currently with ability to walk in terms of distance or the amount of time? And before you start to feel like, oh, I should probably sit down because I feel like I'm exhausted or super achy.
I would say, so the process of that was interesting. Every day I set a goal for myself. Day one was to take a shower. Day two was to go outside and get fresh air. I mean, very small goals that I knew I could do. I was on a walker for a bit, barely bearing weight. And then I started to get more comfortable with that. And then I moved to my cane. And then like my first real steps without cane assistance, it was like, okay, my goal tomorrow is to take 5 steps. And then the next day it was 10 steps. And so I just baby stepped my way up. And then it got to where, okay, I can walk around the block before things start to seize up a little bit. I would say now, and that was just progressive. And there's some days that are better than others based on, if I've been on my mat and everything's nice and loose, I would say I would probably easily be able to walk as far as I really wanted to within reason. I've definitely been out on I went on a walk the other day. It was probably an hour, 15, hour and a half. And I forgot I even had a new hip. Wow. I mean, I was just out walking to enjoy it. So nice. There are days where I feel a little off and I'm kind of like, okay, this feels a little cranky. And, and so, but what I do different now is I stop.
Nice. Yeah. You're listening to your body.
Yeah.
Is that a huge shift from where you were before, back in your old days?
It's a huge shift. And, and so through this process, I've electively given up running, which was, part of what contributed to the damage to my hip. And also part of what, even though it's a healthy exercise, it became an unhealthy pattern for me because of the way I viewed it. Because if I didn't run, again, I would judge myself and my worth for the day. So I would get up in the mornings and it's like I had to go get my run in almost to be okay. And I saw that as a pattern. It was one of those things, just like addiction. Like, I know this isn't good, but I'm not sure how to stop. And getting a new hip gave me that gift as well. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to force you to stop. We're going to, and so I remember sitting in bed one day going, okay, what would be the reasons to go back to running? Like, what good reasons can I come up with? And I couldn't come up with anything that I couldn't do in a different way. Mental health benefits. Well, I can still move my body. I'm not going to blow up and turn into an obese human because I'm not getting out and running every day. There's other ways to, enjoy my body, be present, have a healthy mindset. I definitely don't want to put any more damage on my body. I don't want to end up doing another hip or my knee. So why would I push myself into a space that would be potentially dangerous? And, if I look at my life, I spent over 20 years as a dancer, another 20 years as a runner. I feel like I've done those things and maybe it's time to do some gentler things. And so now my main source of movement has really become my yoga practice. Not that it wasn't always just as big in my life, but now it's kind of like the thing that I go to every day. And then I'll go for a walk or, I might get on my bike for a little bit. I just kind of started that. But I don't feel the need to get out there and prove anything to anyone, including myself, which is really big because, it used to be like, okay, I need to walk X amount of hours and this amount to feel like I've done, I paid my dues for the day to my body. And now it's like, or I could just, I'm very movement oriented, but I can also enjoy a day off. Yes. And just sit in the sunshine or float in the water or, and those are just as healing and as healthy in different ways that aren't chronic abuse.
Yeah. Do you find you're laughing a little bit at yourself now, or are you giving space to understand you were or are the way you are because of certain situations, and therefore, sometimes I do that, I laugh at myself wow, look how much I've changed. That's kind of funny that I had to be that way. But then when I look at it well, why am I the way I am? Well, oh, that was a little rough. Okay, it makes sense why I'm the way I am. And it's an interesting, what a journey. What an amazing journey.
I definitely honor that part of myself that was taking on whatever I was taking on to survive, because it's all I knew when I knew that, right? I knew something didn't feel right and this helped, so let's do that, right? Even if I look back at my past addictions, right? I was just trying to soothe the pain and to make it through, even though what I was doing was self-destructive. And it really plays into, the abuse of my body as well, in that I was doing these things, thinking I was doing the right thing or in survival mode, right? And being able to lay all that down and having literally a forced timeout of being able to really assess, well, who am I? Am I less valuable because I didn't get in a run? Am I less valuable because my body doesn't look a certain way, or I'm not as fit as I possibly could be, or I'm not, doing every advanced posture in yoga versus like, who am I just for being here, for just showing up and sharing space with someone and just existing in this body. And maybe that's just enough to just be.
Yeah. Great. Well said, Hilary. Were there any acts of compassion from either students at the studio and or people around you that you have in your life that really touched you and or made you, not that emotional would be the only outcome, but did you have any like moments where you were just like, wow, you are so kind. Thank
Yeah, it's
you.
actually making me emotional just thinking about it. So coming back to the gratitude, and this was a lesson that I knew. One of my best friends going into surgery, she said to me, she goes, "Now, Hilary, don't be all tough." And like letting people do things for me and help me, because I do live alone. I did have a lot of friends here that pitched in all kinds of different ways, to get me there, to get me home, to make sure I was safe. And I have so much gratitude for that, because I didn't have any family with me through this journey. My daughter was actually supposed to fly out the third day to stay with me a couple days, and she got really sick the night before her flight and had to cancel. And I almost feel like that was kind of divinely orchestrated as well, to allow me to really receive help from people who were doing it not out of obligation, but out of the goodness of their hearts. And it was like feeling like a little army just kind of showed up. I mean, I had, a couple of friends that were like, okay, when are your physical therapy appointments? This one I can take you to, this one I can't. And making sure I had everyone I need, people who were like, I want to help bring you food or whatever. I had one friend and client who just was like such a huge blessing. But he stopped by one day just to check on me and I think bring me a smoothie or some food or something. And he went to put it in my fridge, and he looked in there and he said, "Oh, she needs food." Because it was just kind of empty, because I was just like letting people bring things as I was hungry. And you're not that hungry the first few days after surgery.
Yeah.
And he literally had food delivered to me every single night for like a week and a half or something.
Wow.
Like every night, fresh, organic, clean food showed up at my house, catered to the things that I eat and don't eat. It was so thoughtful. It was so like, it just touched my heart so much, because it was just one of those things that like you're seeing the value, and and that's important to me. Putting good clean food in my body to help heal is important, right? So you don't want to just like grab what's on the shelf, or a bag of nuts, which I had backups and things like that. So yeah, I had plenty of people delivering food, a couple people sending gift cards, bringing by flowers. The best gift I got was just time spent, people willing to just come over, even if they had 15 minutes just to sit with me and just to spend time with me. Because, when you're laid up in bed and you're really uncomfortable and you've got 20 staples down your hip and you can't get into a comfortable position, just having like a little bit of light, of being able to laugh with someone or distract you a little bit, from kind of what you're sitting in, knowing that it's not ending anytime soon was just such a huge blessing.
Aw.
So I was very made aware of just how loved I am.
That's so cool. Would you had made mentioned when we recorded the first podcast, it was about 2 weeks or more that we recorded it prior to surgery, and then I think I released the podcast either the day of your surgery or day after or before, something like that. And so like right before we started recording today, you had made mention that you were able to listen to the you prior to as the you after. What was that like?
That was so interesting. Yeah, I think it came out the day after surgery or the day
so.
of, but I know that I was newly recovering in my bed, listening to myself talk about what I thought was going to happen, which is always so funny, to go back and listen to anything we think we know, because we never know what we know until we know it, right? But and just kind of the expectations that I had going in, and I did really prepare for surgery. I my mindset was I'm training for surgery, so in the gym, in my diet, in my sleep, just getting my body like in the optimum position that I could, and I felt very solid in my choice. I knew that I was doing what I needed to do. I kind of had a plan, like this is how it's going to happen and this is how it's going to go down. And I've got everything in place, which is the old me, definitely like planning and controlling. And then, what happens and you're like, I can't get my leg onto the bed. I can't, it took my friend 40 minutes to get me to the car and in the car because there was just so much pain. It was like, wow, I didn't really expect it to be like this.
Wow.
So it was interesting listening to kind of what I thought was going to happen because I wanted it to be that way, and then accepting life as it is, right, on life's terms, which is like, well, it's going to be like this instead. And it's not going to be easy breezy because there's all these factors that I wouldn't expect that I would have, to not have a nerve block and that normal quote experience that others have. And so it was all kind of like, okay, this is not how I planned it. And then having to adapt and all of that. So yeah, it was really it was interesting listening back to it again. In fact, I should listen to it again now.
Right.
Now that I've quote recovered and see what I think about what I said now.
I agree. I think, the one thing I'm picking up is just like, you sound so happy. So it's like, not that you weren't happy before, but I can hear it. I'm curious, sometimes in the process of getting ready for something like this, there potentially would be the thought like, well, how am I going to afford this? Like I'm a yoga teacher. I live off of my work, and I don't know, you don't have to explain like your financial situation, but I'm curious, I know for myself, if I knew I needed to take 8 weeks off, my first thought is, I can't step away from work for 8 weeks. There's no way. How would I do that? So I'm just curious, can you speak a little bit about what that was like for you and how it worked out or not, and how you're feeling about that currently?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I really hope that you're enjoying this episode, and I just wanted to take a moment to announce a course that I'm really excited to release. It's a free course, and it's called 8 in 8, Learn 8 Limb Yoga in 8 days. My goal is to help coach you along in the Ashtanga yoga practice in a way where we take just the sun salutations, the fundamental asanas, and the final breathing poses, break it down with some philosophy videos as well, explaining the 8 limbs of Ashtanga yoga, in a very easy to use, friendly course that is totally free. Click the link below, check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. That's obviously in our industry, anytime we don't work, that becomes a financial challenge at times, right? Most of us aren't in a situation where we get paid time off, being a yoga instructor or anything else, and we work for money. So definitely the time off was a challenge. I definitely had to ask for some support from some different places, not only to pay for the surgery, right? Because even though I have decent insurance, there's still you're putting money out of pocket to get these things done. You're buying things that you might not have thought of buying, like, multiple ice packs and spending a lot of money on food because you can't cook it. So you're ordering it out or, different things like that, which was why so many blessings were coming from people around me. I was basically fed the whole time. So I had no food expenses, and that was amazing. And then I was back to teaching on day 13.
Wow. So you went back and taught on 13 days. So
as soon as they let me drive, I was back to teaching. Now I was in with a cane and I sat in a chair. But, and that's another thing that, I have, I love to cue and I love to verbally teach and to be able to really watch and witness my class and not be distracted by the own things that I want to demonstrate or whatever. So I was very blessed to not only be able to do that, like physically be able to drive, because that was kind of the thing. As soon as I feel safe driving, I'll come back to teaching. And the studio owners where I teach, they were all like, well, it's up to you. But I'm also very blessed that they were open to that, to have me come in and need some help and make some modifications. And, there are some things that I needed to ask for help with. Like, I can't reach that. I can't do this, but I can do this. And so I was back to teaching, like I said, within 2 weeks. Obviously, Ty took a while to get back to, just because obviously the mobility factor and being able to get up and down off the ground. And then it just was a slow process because I took time off. So my individual clients, I think maybe I started seeing some of my regular clients around 3 weeks. By 4 weeks, I was doing pretty good. And I would say that so I got discharged by my surgeon at 2 months. So a month early. And he basically, after what I went through, which felt like a lot, but he basically said, you're a poster child for a hip replacement. Good job on doing all the hard work. Call me if you need me. So
Nice,
I felt
nice.
really good about the work that I put in, even though it felt grueling at times.
Yeah.
I kept showing up. I kept going to the gym. I kept getting on the stationary bike. I did the PT exercises. I took the steps. I made myself go take, even if it was 10 steps a day. I got on my yoga mat, even if it was modified. And I think there's something to be said about the balance between trusting our body's ability to heal and also putting in the work to make it happen.
Great point. That's a huge one, right? How do you get somebody who doesn't want to do the work to do the work?
Yeah, I mean,
do you have an answer for that?
Well, I mean, I think that's another thing that we face is, we all want solutions. And, kind of we talked about in the first episode as far as, traditional medicine. And sometimes we're seeking it because really that is the best solution for whatever we're facing or dealing with. But sometimes people look to medicine because they want a quick fix and they don't want to do the work. They want to take a pill, or they just want somebody to fix their pain, or they just want it to stop. And so I think realizing that it's the work that you put in combination with the choices you make that get you the results. And I don't know how you make somebody, how you bring that awareness to somebody. For me, I mean, like I said, I tried to lead by example by showing up for yoga and being in the gym and, coming in on my cane, and people are like, what are you doing here? I was like, I got to move my legs. I want to heal. Like, I don't want to just be, I want to be back to whatever 100% is. It might not be what I was before, but 100% of my capacity, which means I can only know that if I do the work, and I take ownership and responsibility, not only for how I got here, but what I can do, to move the needle forward. And I'm very grateful that I have a lot of tools to do that and a lot of knowledge where, not everyone does.
Very cool. Have you had any flashes of inspiration because of this, of a new class you want to start? A new direction to take your therapeutic modalities? Have you had any grand insight of like, oh my gosh, now I know what I'm going to do again, or I know what I'm going to do?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, I still feel really happy with all the things that I am doing. I definitely have more compassion and more appreciation for some of my students and clients who are struggling with chronic pain in their bodies. And so that has become kind of an empathetic focus, like, hey, I know what you're going through. Let's get together, like pushing that a little bit more. I think I can help you. I think I can give you some insight. But I do have a little bit of an inspiration to create some, I guess we'll say sequences working around different body parts, different limitations. Like, okay, well, what kind of practice could we offer somebody who's limited from, the waist down or one leg? What kind of practice could we offer someone who's limited in their arms? And how can we make that just as yummy as what we're experiencing when we can do the full spectrum of movement?
Yeah.
So that's been kind of a, just an inkling of an inspiration, nothing that I've like jumped into and carried forward, but I do feel like because of my experiences, and some limitations and working around it, I'm like, okay, I think there's something here. And I will say this, in teaching, I've become a little more aggressive, I guess we'll say, in really making sure that my students aren't dumping into their joints. And I've always kind of been a bit of a stickler when it comes to hypermobile students because I've experienced that. But now, especially when I see people in these really deep lunges or things like that, it's like almost like I feel my hip crunching inside, I'm like, we need to create space. We need to strengthen and create the space around the joints. And so I am kind of, jokingly every once in a while, I'll, ask someone to pull out of their lunch and engage more. And I'll be like, you don't want to be like me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's build that strength so you don't end up in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know.
Amazing.
I don't want to be the reason leading that they didn't know.
Great point. What forms of external inspiration did you draw from in relation to music, literature, art? Did you need to do some reading? Was there some YouTube videos? What was the kind of thing that you found yourself going to just keep that fire lit to show up?
Like during recovery?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a lot of journaling, which is something that I do, but I was really consistent about it.
What did you notice? What did you notice with journaling? How has journaling changed your life?
To me, it just moves energy through me. It gets things that are kind of swirling up in my head and allows me to kind of process it through. And a lot of times I don't even really, it's not that I don't know what I'm writing, but it just kind of comes as a stream of consciousness. And then before I know what the page is ended, and I just turn the page and wait for the next day. And it's kind of like just a way to move some energy through. And sometimes different things come up with that. It was really interesting. The first week, maybe 2 weeks, I didn't want any stimulation at all. I never turned the television on. I didn't watch any videos. I didn't want to read a book. All I did was I had like my red light on. I laid in my bed. I turned on frequency healing music, and I really just focused on breathing. And that was the most still and present I've probably ever been in my whole life. And there was just something that was like, no, I don't want a lot of stimulation. Probably my nervous system saying like, we've got a lot going on. Like, let's just be still.
Did you feel like you needed to do that to cope with the pain?
I think a lot of it was coping with the pain. I think I just really couldn't handle anything beyond the sensations that I was experiencing, because for me, it was a lot. And again, like I questioned my pain tolerance. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm not that tough, until I kind of got through it. And I'm like, no, that was a lot. I was dealing with a lot of pain.
Did the pain trigger any past traumatic event scenarios for you?
Not specifically any scenarios, but I would say that it just kind of brought up my history as a whole. Like I kind of mentioned before, it really made me so aware of just how unkind I've been to myself, how many situations I've put myself last in instead of first, how often I've sacrificed my needs for other people, achievements, whatever. It kind of just was like, I mean, there was kind of a mourning that happened, like kind of a mourning of a girl who was really struggling. And it just brought all of that to my awareness, and just being in that pain. And also how many times I had really felt alone in my life to deal with things on my own, whether I was or not, just how I felt that I had to do it all. I had to manage it all, carry it all. And sitting with all that pain that nobody can take away definitely triggered that sense of like, okay, here I am, I'm on my own, but I can change that input and say, but I've got a million people who have offered to help. And so my job is to reach out, to connect with people, and to say, I need something. Can you help me? And be willing to receive the help that's given. And also to say no if it's like, I don't really need that today, but thank you anyway. And to really advocate for myself and my needs. And that kind of comes back to changing the relationship I had with myself, which is that I'm worthy of people chipping in and helping me along. I don't have to do it all alone all the time.
Wow. Amazing, Hilary. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Why? That's so cool. Has there been anything that has happened recently that you are witnessing that because of that shift of always putting yourself last, which is a very humble thing, which we were all taught from children, we should put everyone else first. And, in that way, that's how we, can take care of everybody and have everyone be in a happy, healthy place. But Have you noticed any sort of decisions that you've made of late that has been affected by this realization? For example, I don't know, like any situation where you were overextending yourself and realized, no, I'm going to say no tonight. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Has there been something recently that caught your attention?
Honestly, I would say like everything. I would
Everything.
say that it is really, and again, it was something I'd been working on, but this really, like when I just started saying, I've got to take care of myself first, and then I will give whatever I can give from that place. It has enabled me to set better boundaries with family, with friends, with situations. Like, no, I don't think I really want to do that. And what I've really noticed though is when I choose myself, and not even just choosing like putting myself before someone else, but value myself, like know my worth and know that I'm worthy of just being here and just sitting here and without having to perform or do anything for anybody. It's
Whoa.
like all of this stuff, all of this abundance just kind of keeps rolling in. Like it's from tiny beautiful moments where someone says something just so beautiful and kind to me, where I feel so much love, maybe because I'm just open to hear it and receive it now, to literal shifts in people's behavior and the way that they've interacted with me. Like they're respecting my boundaries because they can just feel my energy has shifted. And so it's interesting. It's kind of like everything kind of has, when I've chosen me, life is choosing me, instead of me having to be out there trying to make things happen. I'm just like leaning into this space of trust, and things are kind of just working themselves out. And
Wow.
it's a really lovely place to be.
When you said it's okay for me to just sit here and be, and I don't have to come out and entertain. And then I had a flash of imagining you from your dance days and being in that higher performance, competitive level of everything is about me performing for you so that you hopefully will like me. And then
Mm-hmm.
that nonstop performance aspect would just be so grueling. And I can see what you're saying. That makes really good sense, actually. I mean, I fall into that same belief trap that I have to constantly entertain. And so I'm appreciating hearing what you're saying to help me to feel the same way. Like just it's okay just to be like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay where I'm at, and I don't have to constantly. It's fun to entertain,
Yeah.
but but do I have to do it for my sense of self-worth, or can I do it simply because it's fun?
And kind of shifting from that mindset of, even as a yoga instructor, right? Like, will they like me? Will my class be good enough? Am I good enough? Which is the same old programming of, you go out on stage, you work your tail off, you go out, you perform, you hope you don't screw anything up, and you wait for the applause. And that's your value, right? Like, did people like it? What did the critics think? What kind of write up did you get? Did they think your choreography was shit, or you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
relying on this external validation. So instead of showing up, the message of, am I going to be good enough? Is this good enough? Versus like, I already know it's good enough. And if someone doesn't like it, that's really more about them than it is me. And I'm still good enough. And having to shift that takes so much pressure off the plate of just being able to show up and be like, well, it's going to be great if I'm following my passion and my heart. And it'll align with some people and it won't align with others, but that's okay.
It's such an interesting trajectory because do you remember times where you would be thinking in your mind, everyone keeps telling me that you should just be and you don't have to try to, entertain and be something, to constantly keep somebody going, but it doesn't really quite stick. It's like you hear it, you intellectually know it's true, but then for it to be real is a whole nother process. So it sounds like that's shifting for you, which is really amazing. I mean, I've been also thinking too that there seems to be something in the air where the world is just shifting like that right now. Do you sometimes think that? Do you ever have that question pop up in your head? Like, is this only happening to me? Or is everybody right now on planet Earth having some type of, whoa, aha
I mean,
kind of realization? I mean, I know it doesn't matter because if you're feeling it, that's all that really matters right now. But have you been wondering that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a shift happening on lots of levels, and I think that there are certain people, individuals who, I mean, when change happens, regardless of what you want to view change as, people either, roll back or people jump into it. I mean, most people don't just kind of like have an ambivalent, feeling about it, so,
Yeah.
or an apathetic, I guess I should say. So I think that, because there is this kind of energetic shift is what I feel like in the world. I think that there's a lot of this kind of accelerated change that's happening, and deepened awareness, and people going, oh, aha. And because I have those conversations with people, we're like, oh yeah, me too. And, having these like interesting topics where what I'm saying doesn't feel like, well, what's in the world has she been going through? Like other people are like, I had a similar experience. And then there's another part of people, that are still, kind of rinse and repeating, and that's okay too.
Great point. No judgment.
No judgment.
Just observing.
Yeah, where you want.
Just observing. Yeah.
It's like you can grab the kite tails and like fly with it, or you can just watch it fly away. Like, I mean, you get to choose, like whatever you want to do.
Wow, Hilary, I'm really grateful that we've had this interaction. It's a cool little timeline of events, and I feel like you've been able, you're getting to that point where you're like in relation to what you said. I said this on the podcast, and then here I am listening, going, "Wow, I thought I had everything organized, and I was going to do everything this way, and look how different it is." So I don't want to set you up for another similar situation, but I'm always curious to hear the mindscape of moving forward. Just be present, or is there another new direction? Are you pretty content, or do you have some sort of like, I'm moving here, or I'm going there? Where do you want to go now?
I feel like I'm really, at least right now, really embracing letting life carry me instead of trying to drive life, which I've been doing for so long, and making, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and like trying all these new things. And instead, just really trying to sink into and embrace my ability to receive whatever is presented to me, whether that be in the relationships I have with others, or what I'm doing with my work or clients, or, where I might be led next. And I'm really trying to just kind of like follow the little trail, the yellow brick road, so to speak, like just kind of like, oh, well, this is going, and really melting into this place of like letting go of things that aren't meant to be, and embracing stuff that's coming to me at the same time. So when something falls apart, not having an emotional reaction to it or a judgment, and just being like, well, then that wasn't supposed to work out that way. How interesting. I wonder what will follow, and I wonder where I'll be led. And I'm really just trying to be in this place of receiving, and moving out of this space of, doing and making happen, because that's just, I've lived so much of my life that way, that I'm ready for something different. And ready just to try to be present with the moments, and enjoy, and just feel joy for just existing, and let that be enough for a while.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Hilary.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate everything that you're bringing, and it is a true pleasure to watch, and thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate all your honesty and openness. I don't feel like this is difficult for you, but I do remember on a conversation we had a while back ago of just that sometimes these conversations were avoided, or, by putting up a facade of being the perfect teacher, the perfect, I can overcome I don't need to take care of myself, all that sort of stuff, I think. But it doesn't even feel like it's a big deal now. Like that's just what we're doing naturally. But a little while ago, it felt like a big deal to talk honestly that, hey, I'm in pain. I have pain. I'm a yoga teacher. I have pain. You have pain. We all have pain. Like, I don't know. I think it's been incredible. I'm just, so thank you so much for kind of opening this door, and your honesty is felt and appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. I appreciate the conversation and just the connection that we made, and definitely meant to be.
Thank you, Hilary.
Yeah.
Native Yoga Toddcast is produced by myself. The theme music is dreamed up by Bryce Allen. If you like this show, let me know. If there's room for improvement, I want to hear that too. We are curious to know what you think and what you want more of, what I can improve. And if you have ideas for future guests or topics, please send us your thoughts to info@Native Yoga Center. You can find us at nativeyogacenter.com. And hey, if you did like this episode, share it with your friends, rate it and review, and join us next time.